it. So I don't deny the importance of a mother by no stretch. As I said, we're going to try to have as many.
Just the importance of a mother to his kids.
We have this notion that's rife in our culture, let's say, that's insisted upon, that all families are equal.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the emphasis on that from the, let's call it the tolerance perspective. But I think that it's badly flawed in one manner. And I think this will be the hardest thing probably for us to discuss, is that you can't flatten out distinctions without a tremendous loss.
You also can't flatten out distinctions part way without tremendous loss. You can't give a little bit. There'll be more on this later.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's possible to dispense with the ideal of heterosexual monogamy. Now, as the ideal.
Yes.
So if we think, well, there's an ideal individual who's responsible and mature and far-seeing and honest, an honest trader, a good player, an honorable person, honorable, decent person. And then there's the minimal requirement for a family that's ideal, and that's something approximating heterosexual, long-term heterosexual monogamy.
Something approximating? Why don't we just say that's what it is? Something approximating is too fuzzy around the edges.
And maybe you have two decent people united together, and then there's a firm platform for children. Now, the problem with that as an ideal is that we all fall short of the ideal. And so
Right.
40% of people are going to get divorced. And of the people who don't get divorced, a good percentage of them are in pretty damn miserable marriages. Now, that doesn't condemn marriage, but it does show how difficult attaining that ideal is. And then there's going to be people who lose their partners and raise children alone. And there are going to be people who raise children alone by happenstance or choice.
So it's important to note, so far, so good. So Jordan Peterson is pointing out that the norm, the ideal, is heterosexual marriage and parenting. All right, very good. But it's starting to get a worrisome wobble here. Not everybody does. Not everybody lives up to the ideal.
And it doesn't seem reasonable to, what would you say, put them outside the bounds of civilized society. Let's say that. By the same token, it doesn't seem reasonable to dispense with the ideal.
Yes.
So maybe we need something like, well, we know what the ideal is. It's a divine ideal in some sense, in that none of us can live up to it. But then there has to be a space around that ideal where the individual differences and flaws and peculiarities and idiosyncrasies of people aren't treated so harshly that becomes counterproductive in and of itself.
Now, here is the heart of Peterson's mistake. It is true that marriage has an ideal, but it is also true that marriage is a noun that has a definition. It's a defined thing. And one of the reasons why Jordan Peterson is so well known and provides so much inspiration to so many people is that he has courageously fought for not budging one solitary inch on pronouns, because pronouns have a definition. A male is a male, a female is a female. He means he, she means she. He has gone to the wall over the definition, but marriage has a definition also. And two gay guys don't meet it. They don't fit the definition. And so what's happening is Peterson is caving in an area where he has refused to cave elsewhere. Not only is he doing so, but so is the Daily Wire. This whole thing is a pig's breakfast. It's not good. And it's not good because Peterson has been so good in a related area. How can we fight to the death to preserve the word he and to preserve the word she, and not fight to the death to preserve the definition of marriage?
It's damning with faint praise, but I don't see...
No, that's it. That's the meat of this more than anything else. That there is, of course there's an ideal. Of course there is an ideal. There has to be an ideal, and if
Well,
we
there's nothing to aim at if there's not an
Yeah.
ideal. Because if the ideal isn't two people, male and female, in a heterosexual relationship, then what is it? Is it 4 people? Is it 8 people? Is it 1 person? Like, instantly you go from that kind of narrow ideal to an intense multiplicity, and we've certainly seen the problems that are associated with that.
And what happens when 10 years from now, Jordan Peterson is on the Daily Wire interviewing a polygamist who says, yes, the ideal is 5 people. 5. That's the ideal. Right now, that's unthinkable. But anybody who doesn't understand that we are on a worldview conveyor belt that is sort of the tail end of the conveyor belt is sort of over the edge of the abyss isn't paying attention.
And so you can't just blow out the confines of the ideal without destabilizing. Well, maybe you destabilize society at the level of the family. And that seems to me to be a really bad idea.
Well, it's a really bad idea. And I think we're seeing some of the repercussions of that right now, right? I mean, we've seen the excesses of what the woke or the progressives or whatever that is that are now destabilizing everything.
They are not the excesses of the woke. They are the logical conclusions of this whole enterprise. It's either Christ or chaos. If you reject Christ, you're going to have the chaos. And what Rubin and Peterson are representing is early semi-responsible stages of the chaos, as opposed to the full tilt chaos that they are decrying as excesses. They're not. The conclusion of the argument is not to be described as excesses.
This is why I've said this. I've gotten into trouble for saying it a few times, but I'm sympathetic to conservatives who go, boy, we let gay marriage happen, and look what's happened since. Now we're into all this gender stuff.
We didn't let gay marriage happen. Gay marriage was crammed down our throats, just like all the other stuff that they're talking about is crammed down our throats. So this is not we allowed this. It was done to us. And it was done to us by a Supreme Court that thought they were the supreme being.
And they're literally teaching gender theory to 5-year-olds who know nothing about gender or sex or anything else. But
why is that bad? Why is that bad? What he is doing and what he is advocating and what he is participating in 20 years ago would have been as appalling as what he's describing as appalling now. You need to, if you want to stop this, you have to get somebody to the power switch and turn this conveyor belt off.
If we have the ideal, really what we're talking about here is what do we do with these marginal cases? The marginal cases meaning, okay, so now
they're postmodern question.
Right. So what do we really do with that? So now, okay, so there are going to be gay couples who want to approximate to that ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to work with it. But what about other marginal cases like tranny couples that want to approximate? Does everybody get to try? Is this a game that everybody can play?
So what does a society do?
Well, make one of them wear a dress. Why?
Society try to help them get there? Or does a society just never talk about it, push them to the margins,
and push it underground?
Right.
No, society does what society managed to do for thousands of years. They stick to the definition. Marriage is what marriage is. They stick to the definition. And if people live in a dissolute way, if they want to live in a homosexual way, they do so, but society does not dignify it with the name marriage.
So what we're trying to do right here is unearth that a little bit. So I don't deny the importance of a mother by no stretch. As I said, we're going to try to have as many
just the importance of a mother to his kids.
Strong female role models.
You can't do that. Strong female role models are not mothers. I don't deny the importance of a mother, but my kid's not going to have one. And it doesn't matter if she's got some lady in the Girl Scouts that's nice to her or teacher.
I don't think it's so bad for a child to have a variety of role models to choose from. And I certainly don't think it's impossible for you to replicate both the masculine and the feminine influences in your children's life. I would just say, well, it's difficult. Might be more difficult even if you're a homosexual couple, but it's difficult if you're. It's difficult enough if you're heterosexual. And there are plenty of.
So it's difficult, and the way this whole thing is handed to us, it's difficult. So let's legalize homosexual marriage, same-sex marriage, and make it more difficult.
To differentiate it right down to the ultimate degree, but the problem that you guys will face isn't of a categorically different type.
Yes, it is. Sorry. He is not a she. They are not a husband and wife. They are not a wife and a wife. They are, it's not a thing. Marriage has a definition. And Jordan Peterson, God bless him, this is just a plain old swing and a miss. And Daily Wire, God bless them too, another swing and a miss. This is bad.
Necessarily than the problem that many couples face.
Absolutely. And there are also, when you talk about the ideal and then the way that everyone fits into that ideal or tries to get to that ideal, there are parents who obviously abuse their kids or abuse each other and alcoholics and all of those things. I'm in no way comparing being a gay parent to that, but the point is that there is an ideal situation and then there's what society will allow.
Reality.
And then there's reality. So it's like, okay, so should society stop people who are alcoholics from having kids or stop people who...
Or license parents after intensive training?
No, let's reject the statist solutions, licensing and all that. Let's just say, should society disapprove of drunk parents? Disapprove. Should parents who are drunks, who don't take care of the kids are all a mess, not cared for, not well fed, should society disapprove of that? Or should society maybe have a month? We've had a Pride Month. Why not July as Slovenly Parent Month? No, you can't have it both ways.
Well, it's very strange in some sense because it's the most important thing you'll ever do. And yet, while you're not compelled to have an education, for example, around parenting issues before you become a parent, and we've decided everywhere in the world, I would say, maybe without exception, that that's one place the government doesn't go. And that's a very interesting decision for everyone to have made. It's quite surprising in some fundamental sense. I guess we know that in that situation in particular, a variety of approaches might be the best. So something like that.
Well, so I guess my question for you as I traverse this is, so if we acknowledge that ideal situation. And again, just using the word ideal, I know that there's a certain set of people that will watch that go and see Rubin saying his relationship or he is less than.
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. If you say that a faithful heterosexual monogamy is the ideal, a guy on his third wife has to admit that his experience is less than ideal. It's less than the ideal. You can't say, here's the ideal, and I'm doing something completely different, and it's just as ideal. That you've just thrown out the whole idea of ideal.
Well, who isn't? And
right. Well, that's the key part.
You don't want to dispense with the bloody ideal just because it's difficult to attain.
Right. And just because we all are flawed in our own way. I mean, really, I think you said this to me at dinner, but it's like, who amongst us is walking around as the ideal partner, the ideal person, the ideal everything, the ideal father,
the ideal anything for that matter. Yeah.
Virtually nobody is doing that.
Well, if they are, then the ideal isn't high enough, because an ideal should be something that beckons to you from the distance, right? It's not something that's right there in front of you for you to grip. That's not much of an ideal.
Well, we'd have a lot more people who are acting that way if it was that easy to grip, I suppose, right? Like there's not a lot of people doing it.
Yeah. Earlier at the beginning of the video, Peterson said that he wanted to resist the urge or the impulse to flatten everything. But notice what they've just done. They've just flattened sin. So if everybody falls short of the ideal, now all of a sudden, there's no such thing as good parents. There's no such thing as mediocre parents. There's no such thing as bad parents, because all of us fall short of the ideal. And that's true. It says in Psalms, if God were to mark iniquities, who could stand? Every parent knows of their faults and failings. At the same time, you can look out at the world and say, those are good parents, Those are not good parents. These parents are struggling along. They're doing okay. It's possible to evaluate. You can't say because everyone falls short of the ideal, then a father who drinks too much every other year on one weekend is in the same position as someone who is in a homosexual relationship. You've just flattened everything because everybody falls short. Everybody has to fall short the same distance. And that's just false. Thanks for watching. I wanted to make sure to let you know that Season 4 of Man Rampant is here. For the next few weeks, we'll be posting clips on the Canon Press YouTube channel, but the full interviews are only available on Canon Plus. Check it out at mycanonplus.com/manrampant. And if you haven't joined up yet, you can get your first month for just 99 cents by using promo code MR99.